The wind howled through the narrow streets of Pinebrook as Maddie Jensen wiped down the counter at Lily's diner. It was nearly closing time, another slow Tuesday night, the kind where the jukebox hummed softly in the background and the scent of old coffee lingered more out of routine than demand. The fluorescent lights buzzed gently overhead as she checked the clock. Just one more hour to go. She reached for the coffee pot out of habit when the door creaked open. The sound alone would have startled her on a quiet night like this, but it wasn't the sound that made her pause. It was the man who stepped in. His uniform was worn, the seams frayed, and the insignia dulled from sun and rain. Mud clung to his boots, dried in the ridges from miles walked. He carried a rucksack slung over one shoulder, and more than that, he carried something deeper, exhaustion that ran far beyond the physical. His eyes held stories. Heavy ones. Maddie had seen her share of late-night loners, folks chasing a warm booth and a refill. But something about this man made her breath still. He hesitated at the threshold, like he wasn't sure if he belonged. Then, with a breath that seemed to pull from somewhere far away, he walked toward the corner booth, the one most people avoided because of the flickering light above it, and sat. Maddie grabbed a menu, brushing her hair behind her ears as she made her way over. "Evening, sir. What can I get started for you?" she asked, her voice laced with kindness, not the plastic politeness so many used to end their shifts faster. He looked up slowly. His face was weathered, creased by time and hardship, but it softened at her tone. "Just a coffee," he rasped, voice hoarse, like it hadn't been used much lately. She noticed the way his fingers gripped the edge of the table. A quiet tremble, subtle but impossible to miss. He wasn't as tired, he was running on fumes. "One coffee coming right up," she said, but then paused. "And how about a hot meal? On the house?" He flinched slightly, eyes narrowing with caution. "I can't accept that, ma'am." "You serve this country," Maddie said gently, without hesitation. "Let me serve you." His shoulders sagged. The resistance in his eyes, forged by pride and survival, began to melt. After a beat, he nodded. "Thank you." Minutes later, she brought out a plate piled high, eggs, bacon, a stack of pancakes with melted butter and syrup trickling down. She set it down in front of him and walked away, pretending not to notice how he stared at it, like it was some kind of miracle. He took the first bite. His eyes closed, and Maddie, from behind the counter, watched as he slowly worked through the meal, not with urgency, but reverence. It wasn't just food. It was dignity. When he was finished, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a few crumpled bills. "At least let me pay for the coffee." She shook her head and pushed his hand back gently. "Consider it a thank you for everything you've done." For a long moment, he just looked at her. Something unsaid passed between them. Then, with a slow nod, he tucked the money back into his coat. "People don't usually do things like this," he said. "They should," she replied simply. He stood, adjusted his jacket, and turned toward the door. "You're a kind soul, miss. More than you know." And just like that, he was gone. Maddie stood there for a while, staring at the empty booth. Something about the moment clung to her, like the lingering scent of strong coffee after a stormy night. She didn't know that by morning, her life and the life of her small-town diner would be changed forever. The next day began like any other. Maddie pulled into the parking lot as the first golden strands of sunlight stretched across the hills. The neon sign of Lily's Diner flickered awake, and she expected a day of regulars, truckers, and routine. But as she turned the corner, she slammed on the brakes. Military vehicles lined the street, Humvees, armored transport trucks, and at the center of it all, two massive tanks parked directly in front of the diner. A crowd had gathered, phones raised, recording what looked like a Hollywood set. Maddie's heart pounded as she stepped out of her car. Her breath curled in the cold morning air. She pushed through the crowd, still clutching her apron, unsure if she was walking into a dream or a disaster. A soldier in a pressed uniform approached. His stance was firm, his boots polished, but his face bore no hostility. "Are you Maddie Jensen?" he asked. "Yes," she replied slowly. He stepped aside, and that was when she saw him. The man from last night. Only now, he was not the weary traveler she'd fed out of compassion. He was in full military dress, medals gleaming, posture regal. Behind him stood high-ranking officers. Maddie blinked in disbelief. He stepped forward. "Good morning, Miss Jensen," he said, his voice smooth and steady. "I believe we owe you a thank you." "A what?" she stammered. "My name is General Lucas Holloway," he said, and the crowd murmured. "Commander of the United States Army Special Operations Division." Her mind reeled. "A general? I recently returned from an unclassified mission," he explained. "Long, grueling, and when I came back, I was just a man. No title, no recognition, just someone wandering his homeland, wondering if kindness still existed." He paused. "And then I walked into your diner." Maddie tried to find her voice. "I didn't know who you were." "That's exactly why it mattered," he said softly. "You saw a man, not a rank, not a symbol, just a man in need. And you gave without hesitation." He turned to a soldier, who stepped forward with a briefcase. It clicked open to reveal stacks of bills, crisp and bundled. "This," General Holloway said, "is $50,000. My personal gift to you." But that's not all. Maddie's knees trembled. She barely heard as the general raised his hand, signaling the others. The soldiers snapped to attention. A military band began playing. A certificate was brought forth bearing the seal of the United States Army. "This is a certificate of honor," Holloway declared, "reserved for those who demonstrate extraordinary service to the nation. Last night, Miss Jensen, you served in your own extraordinary way." The crowd erupted in applause. With shaking hands, Maddie took the certificate, her eyes brimming. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to," Holloway replied. "Your actions said enough." Then, another envelope was handed to her. Inside was a check $100,000. "A grant," Holloway said, "for Lily's Diner. So you can continue helping people, just as you helped me." Maddie was breathless. "There's more," Holloway said. He led her to a military transport truck. Inside were crates upon crates labeled with food, water, blankets, supplies. Everything one might need to survive a hard winter or a harder life. "This," he said, "is for your town. Your diner is now a place of refuge." Before she could respond, another soldier approached with a set of keys. Maddie stared. "What are these for?" "Come see." They turned the corner. Parked across the street was a brand new food truck. On the side, in bold lettering, it read, "Maddie's mission serving those who serve us." She dropped her knees, overcome. "This can't be real," she whispered. "It's very real," Holloway said. "You showed the world what kindness looks like. Now show them how far it can go." The cameras rolled. Reporters captured every second. News anchors shouted her name. Crowds chanted. Children waved flags. But Maddie saw none of it. She stood with the keys in her hand, tears down her cheeks, heart full. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You already did," the general replied. "Now go change the world." As the sun rose higher over Pine Brook, Maddie Jensen, the small-town waitress with a big heart, became a symbol. Not of wealth, not of fame, but of something far more powerful. Hope, compassion, and the movement sparked by one humble plate of pancakes and a warm cup of coffee.